you read in the newspapers, or you hear on the way, that of course there will have been, people would have been prepared for this.
Unexpectedly, Queen Camilla was allegedly prevented from attending important meetings for Prince William's coronation ceremony by Princess Anne, which caused a great deal of friction inside the court. Instead of a seamless and cohesive transfer of power, insiders say it revealed a deep division among the royal family that might upset the monarchy's meticulously preserved order. Rumors of a silent, unseen battle started to circulate as Prince William was ready to take the initiative with the institution's full support. There seemed to be conflicting allegiances, no opposition was spoken, and deliberate choices were allegedly made behind closed doors and out of the public eye. Princess Anne, who has long been considered one of the family's most disciplined and unwavering members, shocked palace insiders by excluding Camilla from the coronation preparations. This action raised concerns about a potential rift between the two royal women. Instead of providing the backing that many had anticipated, Princess Anne allegedly used her power to subtly stop the process. There was no big announcement or public altercation, simply a well-thought-out choice that essentially ignored Queen Consort Camilla. Insiders subsequently claimed that her exclusion from the first planning sessions and strategic conversations about Prince William's impending coronation was more than just an error. For weeks, her name was not mentioned at all in invitations, private briefings, or important papers. According to reports, the execution was painstaking, with Anne directing William's closest advisors to move quickly, so that every significant choice stayed within a strictly regulated inner circle that reported only to Anne and William. According to reports, Camilla found out she was excluded by accident when her own employees asked her why she hadn't gotten a crucial planning document. It was said that the discovery was quite uncomfortable. According to accounts, she was caught off guard and deceived within Clarence House, not just by, but also by the royal system, which she thought she had finally gained entry to. However, she did not publicly object in accordance with a long-standing royal custom. But the message within the royal gates was clear. This was intentional. While some insiders regard Anne's actions as part of a larger fight for legacy, power, and control over the monarchy's future, others contend that Anne acted out of intense devotion to William in an effort to protect him from internal conflicts. The climate had changed significantly, and Princess Anne's audacious action may have been a major turning point for the royal family as gossip grew. Soon after, there were questions. Had Camilla's rising public stature and subtle influence behind the scenes finally pushed Princess Anne to her breaking point? And has long been seen in royal circles as the immovable cornerstone of the monarchy, disciplined, moral, and steadfast in her commitment to duty and tradition. She doesn't seek attention from the public or pursue headlines, but when she does, the palace takes notice. Insiders, however, claim that underneath her calm facade, there has been a persistent undercurrent of stress, most of it focused on Camilla, and is said to have kept a calm and collected distance from Charles III and Camilla from their first public appearances together. Anne's manner remained formal and constrained, courteous but never friendly, while Camilla transformed from a contentious figure to queen consort. Other senior royals made overt attempts to embrace Camilla, but Anne stuck to tradition and just acknowledged her without getting to know her personally. Palace watchers said her position was based on principle rather than envy, and has always held the view that respect and status should be attained over decades of visible service, rather than via meticulous image maintenance or public rehabilitation. She could have believed that Camilla's rise was hurried by fate rather than a long-term obligation. One insider even remembered a modest remark made by Anne to a friend after a gathering at Balmoral Castle. Some wear the crown for duty, while others wear it for appearance. Many people thought this statement had deeper significance. Camilla's participation in public appearances and internal etiquette choices increased dramatically when Charles took the throne, heightening rumors that Anne's subdued opposition had been developing for years. According to reports, Princess Anne saw Camilla's increasing self-assurance in establishing her public persona within the royal hierarchy as overreach rather than a natural authority. Instead of working within the boundaries set by long-standing tradition, it seemed to, and that Camilla was trying to reinterpret her role in the monarchy. Insiders assert that the stress manifested at private moments at significant state events and went beyond minor public signs. Palace sources claim that on at least 2 important occasions, Anne took over when Camilla seemed prepared to conduct ceremonial exchanges. and is said to have quietly but forcefully stopped Camilla in the middle of a talk with a foreign ambassador at one diplomatic reception, taking up the topic herself. According to those close to Anne, it was a correction and attempt to maintain etiquette and order as she perceived them, rather than a competition. According to reports, Anne expressed her worries to Prince William in private, cautioning that Camilla's growing assertiveness ran the danger of obfuscating the distinction between real power and symbolic support. Sources claim that she was more concerned with structural issues than personal ones. As William gets ready for a future characterized by intensive public scrutiny and contemporary challenges, she worried that an unrestrained increase of Camilla's position may upset the delicate balance that maintains the monarchy's stability. Some insiders feel that these private discussions were a turning moment, sowing the seeds for Camilla's diminished participation in coronation preparations, and saw this as a matter of protection rather than punishment. She saw Camilla's increasing influence as a possible weakness rather than as bolstering the crown, and she opted to approach it with purposeful, tacit opposition rather than conflict. Insiders said that while Princess Anne saw impending danger, William, Prince of Wales, had already started to dread it. A secret encounter between William and Queen Camilla a few weeks before had subtly changed the family's equilibrium, according to a source close to the prince. According to reports, what was supposed to be a peaceful conversation about responsibilities and limits evolved into a clearly tense moment. Those acquainted with the interaction characterize it as a quiet confrontation that revealed a growing rift, despite the fact that no voices were raised and no dramatic spectacle transpired. The tension between them had been subtle for months, with long pauses, courteous but cold smiles, and brief but revealing moments of unease. William was the epitome of restraint in public, being calm and obedient. But behind the scenes, Philip had become more and more uncomfortable as Camilla assumed more prominent ceremonial duties and acted with more power at royal events. He now saw the problem as systemic rather than personal. As he prepared himself for the duties that would eventually be his exclusive responsibility, it was about the future of the monarchy and the clarity of authority. According to reports, the crucial discussion was held in Clarence House with the intention of outlining expectations before to coronation preparations. William treated it as the Prince of Wales establishing the foundation for his future rule, not just as a member of the family. He reportedly asked Camilla to refrain from participating in certain ceremonial and symbolic planning meetings, and asked for room to establish his leadership in a courteous but straightforward manner. There was merely a tactful request for limits, no accusations. However, Camilla's reaction was seen as calm and somewhat contemptuous. She allegedly smiled and said that such issues were only symbolic tradition. To William, the comment meant something more profound, a failure to acknowledge the importance of the change that was taking place. He reportedly responded sternly, indicating that the future crown was not hers to mold, in a rare break from his customary control. Although there were no shouted voices throughout the discussion, the message was still very much there in the royal hallways. Relationships at the core of the monarchy may have changed as a result of what had formerly been quiet uneasiness, turning into a pivotal moment. After the meeting, there was more quiet than disagreement. There was a lengthy, uncomfortable silence, followed by William, Prince of Wales, standing, saying nothing more, and leaving the room without a spectacular confrontation or rising voices. According to sources, he had already made up his mind. He had a private meeting with Princess, and the very following day. The timing was intentional. What had started out as personal discomfort had solidified into something far more significant. A matter of power, public opinion, and the monarchy's long-term viability. According to reports, and consented without question, they agreed that Queen Camilla would not be included in any further talks on the planning of the coronation. The tactic was meticulous and discreet. No official proclamation or announcement was made. Correspondence was redirected, guest lists were modified, and agendas were subtly updated. The planning meetings went on, but Camilla was not there. The change was immediately recognized within the royal gates, where custom and nonverbal cues dictate conduct. This was presented as realignment rather than revolt, and made sure the border, drawn by William, remained in place. Camilla, on the other hand, was unwilling to tolerate being marginalized. It was shocking when she finally realized she had been left out, allegedly due to a little calendar update that mentioned a coronation preparation meeting at Kensington Palace, where her name was missing. Assistants first thought it was a clerical error. However, when calls remained unanswered and confirmations did not come in, it became clear that it was intentional. Her response, according to sources, was strong and characterized by shock and rage. There was reportedly a deeper dread underneath the annoyance. Losing authority and eventually disappearing from choices that would shape the destiny of the monarchy. When she allegedly addressed Charles III at Clarence House, the tension increased. Voices were said to have risen behind closed doors, but nothing was ever formally recognized. It is said that Camilla voiced her displeasure at being marginalized in situations that she had previously regarded to be shared duties. Charles, however, made no overt attempt to overturn the ruling and provided no public defense. Insiders said his silence was a powerful statement. It's possible that Camilla understood at that very moment that the monarchy's future course was being determined outside of her, not around her. The institution had protected her for years, but suddenly things were different. Queen Camilla was no longer part of the close group she had thought was safe. But she was not the kind to retreat. Behind the scenes, her staff apparently shifted from passive management to active planning, experimenting with carefully scheduled appearances, targeted interviews, and subliminal reminders of her ongoing presence. The goal was to regain influence without starting an open battle, not to reveal discord. However, one fact persisted in spite of all the efforts. William, Prince of Wales's coronation preparations proceeded without her. Key choices were made, alliances were fortified, and her position was no longer central to the story determining the destiny of the kingdom. Visibility is power in royal life, and Camilla seemed to be fading from view for the first time since she stood next to Charles III as queen. Another person moved forward with cool assurance as her power seemed to wane. Catherine, Princess of Wales, just calmly and confidently claimed the place next to William without attempting to gain attention or a position. Catherine's presence provided stability and forward focus in a chapter that had been characterized by tension and maneuvering. Palace sources claim that her contribution to early coronation deliberations was meaningful rather than ceremonial or symbolic. She was accused of influencing the event's tone and emotional resonance from the beginning, in addition to its specifics. According to reports, Catherine stressed the importance of the event feeling linked and current, especially to younger generations watching the monarchy's development. In order to ensure that the future was represented in more than just name, she is said to have pushed for obvious young involvement in the procession. She also suggested intelligent methods to pay tribute to Elizabeth II's legacy, striking a balance between respect for history and a nuanced recognition that the institution has to change in order to continue to have significance. The balance of power seemed to settle in that slow, almost undetectable change. Without conflict or show, Catherine's expanding position suggested that the monarchy's center of gravity may now be in harmony with the future crown rather than competition or opposition. Without the need for proclamations, Catherine, Princess of Wales, won over advisors with her steady, determined, and subtly forward-thinking approach to fusing tradition with contemporary vision. Whereas Queen Camilla's actions had aroused criticism, Catherine's authority developed so organically that it encountered almost no opposition. Her strategy was regarded by palace officials as methodical and deliberate, perfectly in line with William, Prince of Wales. They functioned as partners, rather than according to position or authority. According to one source, Catherine provided balance, where William provided power. Together, they were subtly but significantly influencing the future coronation's meaning and tone. She didn't need any official statements to increase her status. The audience seemed to react naturally to Catherine's calm demeanor after years of conflict and exhaustion. She exuded confidence without being ostentatious. She was refined yet personable, sophisticated but not attention-grabbing. According to reports, polling patterns confirmed what palace advisors had long noticed. People were responding to sincerity rather than hierarchy. Because of her honesty, Catherine became a symbol of trust, not by taking the place of others or vying for space, but by emulating the path that the monarchy seemed to be taking. The future queen handled herself as if the duty were already hers, according to observers, and did not wait for a crown to define her. However, just as William and Catherine's idea started to take shape, a private development posed a danger to upset the delicate equilibrium. Charles III is said to have called Princess and to Windsor Castle for a private and intimate conversation. The meeting was heated but under control, according to subsequent sources. Charles, allegedly under Camilla's influence, tried to convince and to change her mind about the silent decision that had kept Camilla out of the coronation preparations. Camilla felt humiliated by the exclusion, while Charles feared it would break the unity he had fought so hard to maintain. On the other hand, Anne was not renowned for giving in to emotional pressure. According to those who are aware with her position, she entered the discussion as a protector of institutional order rather as a sister protecting pride. According to reports, Charles invoked fidelity, and the years of scrutiny Camilla had to face to acquire her position, speaking both as a spouse and as a monarch. It is said that he stressed that she was his wife and should be acknowledged in the changing system. But as always, Anne's top concern was the crown itself, its stability, its unambiguous authority, and the long-term future she felt needed to be safeguarded above all else. According to reports, the request lingered in the air for a long time after it was made. Charles III's plea to commitment and allegiance was a spouse seeking understanding, not just a ruler imposing his will. However, emotion had no effect on the result. As the discussion at Windsor Castle came to an end, Charles was forced to face a sobering fact. His once dominant power was now being questioned within his own family. His once certain power now confronted silent, but unchangeable boundaries. Queen Camilla had been his haven for years in the face of pressure and criticism, a constant presence throughout some of the most volatile periods of the monarchy. According to insiders, however, her function had changed from being seen as a unifying factor to a dividing line. Any disagreement was overshadowed by the quiet that surrounded the group. It is believed that Princess Anne remained steadfast and determined, putting institutional clarity ahead of individual requests. It was clear that the issue was resolved when she left without making any concessions or using a softer tone. There would be no quick reconciliation, no well-planned acts of solidarity to allay rumors. There was no public outburst of tension in the days that followed. Rather, it settled into something more deliberate and controlled a recalibration taking place in private. Anne had set her limits. It had been strengthened by William, Prince of Wales. Even as king, Charles seemed to understand that authority is seldom absolute, which is a challenging reality of monarchy. It is molded by custom, passed down through the family, and eventually directed by those in a position to continue it. Palace advisors apparently prepared a carefully worded response as rumors became more intense. Every connotation was considered, every syllable measured. When it was eventually made public via formal means, it avoided acknowledging internal strife and instead focused on unity and calm comfort. While deeper currents continued to flow silently under the surface, the statement was succinct and purposefully neutral, giving the audience a sense of continuity and coherence. When the palace eventually released its well-crafted statement, it omitted any specific names and merely referenced the continued support of William, Prince of Wales, from senior royals. The most notable thing was that Queen Camilla's name was completely missing. The tale itself swiftly emerged from that quiet. Media sources, royal critics, and analysts jumped on the absence, pointing out that headlines were dominated by the Prince of Wales's constant support. Observers pointed out that in the language of royal communications, Camilla's absence was unavoidable since silence may speak more than any proclamation. The serene exterior of the castle concealed a totally different reality. Behind closed doors, stress and hurry were in charge. Internal letters quickly spread, telling employees to stay on task, stop from speculating, deny knowing about planned discussions, and most remarkably not bring up Camilla in any conversation about the coronation. The action sparked debate about whether Princess Anne's power had risen to the point that even the crown's well-chosen words conveyed her strength and unwavering determination, or whether it was a subtle declaration of William's authority. A few weeks prior to Camilla's exclusion being widely known, and is said to have sent a confidential letter to her brother, Charles III, which may hold the solution. The letter, which was exclusively meant for Charles, showed how much Anne cared about the monarchy and its future. Even though she was composed, professional, and controlled as always, there was a clear sense of urgency and intensity in her statements. Without precise boundaries and strict discipline, she said, the monarchy faced the danger of turning into a pageant of contradiction, where duty was subordinated to appearances and purpose was subordinated to image. In context, the message was clear even though she never mentioned Camilla by name, and underlined that when personal connections take precedence over national responsibilities, trust erodes, and she named William as the last solid pillar that can successfully combine traditionalism with forward thinking. She believed that Charles ought to take a back seat, not as a brother obeying a sister, but as a monarch whose duty was to defend the realm, not his own interests. She contended that while letting go could hurt, It was essential to the monarchy's continued existence. A royal family juggling loyalty and institutional preservation, where power, custom, and public opinion clash in very intimate ways, is shown by Princess Anne's deeds, words, and unwavering attitude toward Camilla.